Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the John Krasinski Show. I am John Krasinski from The Athletic, cover the Minnesota Timberwolves and the NBA for The Athletic. Jim Suhan is usually with me. He is on vacation this week, and so I brought in a co-host, special guest that you all know very well. His name is Dane Moore. He has the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Aquarius Home Services, Lexus of Wyzetta and Maplewood, Chew Vision, and Lamb Chops. And Dane, you and I were at the practice facility last night as the second round wrapped up, and it started to percolate a little bit that, hey, maybe the Wolves have a little bit of interest in LaMelo Ball, and I asked you to come on, and I figured, we'll just talk a little bit through some of the possibilities, and lo and behold, we both wake up this morning, and the deal is done. It's LaMelo Ball to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Naz Reid and draft pick compensation is going out the door. We will get into all of it, but just first of all, just what's your overall thought about LaMelo Ball as a Minnesota Timberwolf?
Well, the first time I knew it was a possibility was when you said, "Hey, Dane, you want to come on my podcast tomorrow morning?" And I said, "What are we going to talk about?" You said LaMelo, and I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Okay, so this is happening." I mean, my head's still spinning a little bit. You know, this just happened like an hour ago. I didn't expect the Naz Reid part of it. I think from a Timberwolves perspective, you know, he's longest tenured Timberwolf. You and I have known him for a really long time. Awesome guy, somebody, you know, that I wanted to kind of see come into full flower, and it looked like that opportunity was going to be there without Julius Randle. So that was the first thing I think when I saw the Shams tweet, when I was like, oh, Naz, it's not Rudy, which was kind of the framework I thought it was going to end up being. And I'm sure we can get into the details of some of that. But the first part of it to me was striking, of like, no more Naz Reid on the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then your mind sort of goes wild of like, okay, this is going to be wild. The Minnesota Timberwolves have LaMelo Ball on their team.
Yeah, I think we will definitely, I want to spend a lot of time on Naz here in just a bit because he deserves it. Like, he has been here through thick and thin. He has made himself into a great player. He is obviously a folk hero here in the Twin Cities. And so I am conflicted about that part of it. It will be hard to see him go, and we'll get into him a little bit more later. But just from talking to people within the organization this morning, and kind of having an idea about it over the last couple of years, I think Tim Connolly and Chris Finch have long believed that LaMelo Ball is a perfect fit for Anthony Edwards in that backcourt. And I know that over the last several years, they have checked in on LaMelo in Charlotte a couple of times. Hey, would you do this? Would you do that for LaMelo? Each time they were turned away. And so something has happened in the last, couple days, weeks, to get the Charlotte Hornets to a point where they were comfortable partying with LaMelo Ball. And I think one of the interesting aspects of it is they are doing it after he may have had his best season, just overall. I mean, we've seen him score more points. We've seen him shoot a little bit better. But when you look at the winning that he effected in Charlotte, the way that team came together in the second half of the year, it's just really interesting to see them part with him right now at 24 years old with 3 years left on his deal. And so I do think when you look at it, there is a little bit of an element of risk involved from the Wolves' perspective because he hasn't stayed healthy except for last year. And then he also has not played in the playoffs yet and has, I think, some questions about his maturity. But when you look at where his game is at right now, man, it just seems like a really good timing for him on that front.
Yeah, we knew that risk was going to happen in any of these moves, right, John?
Yeah.
Like the Wolves, given how few draft assets that they have, they weren't able to go get a player who doesn't come with risk, and that's why we spent so much time over the past month or so talking about players who have varying levels of risk, like Kyrie Irving. We spent a lot of time on. There was going to be risk associated with that. Obviously, John Morant and LaMelo. There is that as well. But I think to your point, he is coming off of his best season in a context, like in an NBA context that was real winning basketball. Like you can take something and be like, okay, it's not just like the idea of what LaMelo, the prospect we've seen for so long would look like. You can take film and games from last season of how he was playing, and you can envision that on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you can envision that being winning basketball. And I think maybe some people who weren't locked in on Charlotte, the second half of the season, maybe don't know that piece of it, that this is the best that LaMelo Ball has looked. And is there injury risk there? Yeah, I think there's the history with the ankle, but it was kind of why between Kyrie Irving and John Morant, I found myself more intrigued by John Morant when I was talking about those, just from like an age standpoint. And LaMelo's even younger than John Morant is. And if the theme of this offseason thus far, just from what Chris Finch and Tim Connelly have told us in press conferences and stuff on the record, it's that they want to get younger. They want kind of like the high bar of the roster age-wise to be 26 years old. And I don't know if it's a Leonardo DiCaprio sort of thing, but Nas is turning 27, later.
Time to move on. Time to move on. Julius out. Nas out.
Right.
We're moving forward.
So they're super young now, man. I mean, this is a really, really young team. I think there's only two guys on the team that are in their 30s, right? Rudy and then Dante DiVincenzo, who's not going to play. Also, LaMelo, 3 years left on his contract. Anthony Edwards, 3 years left on his contract. Jaden McDaniels, 3 years left on his contract. Yohan Berenger, 3 years left on his contract. Like, we always talked about the second window of the Anthony Edwards era. Like, this is it. This 3 years with those four guys.
Well, and then the other part about it that to me is super intriguing is they did get younger, but I don't think there's a question, Dane, that if you want to put LaMelo Ball, Kyrie Irving coming off of a knee injury, and John Morant in a bucket, right, LaMelo Ball's the best player, like, of the three of them right now, I think. I mean, maybe Kyrie you could say, but like with his age and his injury, we don't know how he's coming off of that. I think LaMelo Ball's better than John Morant. There are going to be times where we're watching next season and he pulls one with 18 seconds on the shot clock from 40 feet, and you're gonna be like, what is he doing?
That might be the first shot of the season.
It might be. And Ant will be like, yeah, man, shoot that bit. And so there's going to be some of that for sure. But if you look at the metrics and the analytics and the advanced stuff about how LaMelo affected the winning and on Charlotte, I mean, it's stark. I think looking at Cleaning the Glass, they were plus 11.1 on offensive efficiency with him on the floor, plus 9.9 overall. Those are like enormous numbers. And I do think it is something that, as someone who hasn't watched LaMelo every day, like, I looked at it as like, man, is this guy a winning player? Does he do the right things? But a lot of last season, he did a lot of those things, and you would hope that as he ages, as he gets into more winning environments, that maybe there will continue to be another ascension there. But I just think that he is an all-star caliber player, and you gave up Naz Reid and some draft pick compensation for an all-star caliber player. That's a pretty good return.
I would say significant draft compensation.
Yeah.
And I think as we're sort of learning in this new
break
environment.
Down the picks right now. Yeah, let's break down the picks. So.
I mean, the big pick is the 2033 unprotected first round pick. And in 2033 is certainly a long ways longer than the 3 years that they have all these guys under contract. Like, if I'm Charlotte, I'm looking at that like that's a nice pick. That will be a nice pick. But it's seven years down the line. I do think from an opportunity cost standpoint, like, you could have maybe traded that pick so distant into the future for, maybe 2 first-round picks more closely, and then you don't necessarily need to go all in. I mean, somebody described it to me today like a bankroll in like gambling, or where the Wolves just didn't have that much in their bankroll from an asset standpoint. So to trade that 2033 pick is significant because now there's no other first round picks that you can trade. On its face, is just one unprotected first round pick like all that bad? No, but it is significant because it's significant to the Timberwolves. And then you throw the first round pick swaps in there, like those aren't necessarily that big of a deal. You basically empty out your second round pick coffer. I don't think that matters that much. But that 2033 pick was their last asset that they could use to go get a star player, and they did. They did in LaMelo Ball, but it is not going to be the next time a star player comes up for, they might be getting traded. The Minnesota Timberwolves are not going to be the name that shows up on that Shams tweet anymore of interested teams, because they no longer have any compensation to be able to bring anyone else back. Like, this is the team, right, John? I mean,
yeah, 100%. Yeah. You and I have fought. It's a great point because you and I have been used to, over the last couple of years, every time a star player comes into the lexicon of the rumor mill, the Wolves are in on him and they're trying to get him. It's Kevin Durant, it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's Kyrie Irving, it's all of these guys. And I can tell you, just in talking to people, they were in on Jaylen Brown as well. Like, Jaylen Brown it was made clear by the Celtics that he was going to be available, and the Wolves were trying to have conversations about what it would take to get Jaylen Brown. I think that they looked at those two, Jaylen Brown and LaMelo Ball, and Brown, just because he's won a championship, he's a little older, he, was top 6 MVP this year. I think that the Celtics were asking more for Brown than what the Hornets wanted for Ball. But I think there's also a belief internally that Ball, just in terms of what the Wolves absolutely need, which is a point guard, distributor, quarterback, floor stretcher, that he checks more of those boxes than Jaylen Brown does. But to your bigger point, this is it. Like, there is not going to be, another kind of look for another star. In this current NBA, you basically have 1.5 or 2 stars and then surround him with depth. And that is the roadmap to contention anymore. There's no more 3-star models, any of that. And so they are banking that LaMelo Ball will be healthy enough, which they have a very good training staff. So that's, I think, encouraging. Like, you lean into them and say, hey, maybe they can keep him healthy, and that he will be maturing from a winning decision-making standpoint, to be reliable that way. But this is what they are now. This is Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball. Then you throw in Johan, you throw in Jaden, you throw in everyone. That's what this team is going to be for the next several years now. And I do think that maybe that's okay, Dane. Like, I wonder, we saw last year, I do think the Giannis talks threw this team off a little bit, certainly threw Julius off.
For sure.
So maybe, like, going forward, if the players can be told by Tim Connolly, by Chris Finch, you are our guys, we are rolling with you, maybe that'll bring a little bit of serenity to the whole operation as well.
2 things. To go back to the Jaylen Brown thing for a second, I think they functionally could have done that trade in the same sort of way. Like, they included, this is all part of the Julius Randle trade now. So like in this trade, the Wolves are taking on LaMelo Ball and Josh Green, and that's like $56 million of salary. That's what Jaylen Brown makes, right? He makes $57 million. So they could have done the same sort of salary match mechanics in that way. But I will note that Jaylen Brown is under contract for 3 years, $183 million. And LaMelo Ball is under contract for 3 years, $130 million. We're talking about Jaylen Brown is on the supermax, 35% of the cap. LaMelo Ball is making 25% of the cap. And so it's just a significantly lower salary, which I think allows you to potentially have a little bit more depth than if it was Jaylen Brown, or if it would have been Giannis, if it would have been more of the star supermax type player. I think you're talking about a team that has even less depth. I think with LaMelo, there's a couple of pathways to sort of round this out a little bit, just because his salary point is a little bit lower. I think they're done from a pursuing stars standpoint, but like this roster is also a little bit incomplete, and maybe we should talk about that a little bit. You had too many power forwards, 72 hours ago on this team, and now you have none.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the curiosity when I try to picture this. I know we could talk about LaMelo a little bit more, but I do think we should talk about, who's the starting power forward. I haven't heard anything today. Are we assuming like the starting lineup on opening night as of right now is Rudy at the 5, Jaden at the 4, Ayo at the 3, Ant at the 2, LaMelo at the 1? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, let's get to that right after this break here. And I'm here with Dane Moore on the John Krasinski Show. We're talking LaMelo Ball. We're talking all of the ins and outs of it. And we are brought to you by Aquarius and Lexus of Maplewood and Wayzata.
Scott for Aquarius. Home ownership is like a reality show. Your house loves drama. One day the AC quits. The dripping faucet keeps you up all night. Or the light switch never turns off. But Aquarius Home Services is ready for every plot twist. Our trusted HVAC techs, plumbers, and electricians bring the calm back home with $98 off any repair. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today. All right, back now here on the John Krasinski Show. 2 quick things. First of all, to lean back one more time on Jaylen Brown, Dane, you are right that all of this mechanics could have worked for Jaylen Brown and gotten that deal in, but Boston was not going to take just Naz Reid and picks for Jaylen Brown. And so I think I'm just guessing at this, but my speculation is that it would have required Rudy, Naz, and maybe even like Shannon or someone else, and picks for Jaylen Brown. And that just was not going to be a realistic thing. And so in doing the Ball situation, now you part with Naz, beloved and a valuable part, but you still have Rudy, who I think is going to be critical for him defensively to help LaMelo Ball out. And you also have Terrence Shannon Jr., you have Yohan, you have a lot of your young players still in the fold here. But to your point on the larger issue, yeah, I do think that they need a power forward right now, today. You would say it's LaMelo, Ant, and it's then Jaden at the 4 and Rudy at the 5. But I would think that they would be in the market for a power forward of some sort, or, maybe you use Josh Green. Maybe he can be like moved and you can get a piece that's a little bit more of a fit at that spot than they have right now, because it's ill-fitting the other way, and they're just going to have to find, even if you say, yeah, we can play Jaden at the 4, I still think you need more behind him to give you another look and get bigger if you need it.
I've heard Sandro Mamukelashvili from Toronto as potentially an option there. Now, I think that's going to depend on what his free agent market place ends up being, and I'm not sure if the Wolves will be able to compete from an offer standpoint of what that is. But that would be a way to kind of repurpose a little bit of the, he has some of the floor spacing element that Naz had, and he could play off the second side, attack a closeout, those sort of things. So I would monitor that name. But then I think if that doesn't come to fruition, you still have this need at power forward to address the front court. And that's where then I would go to Josh Green as matching salary in some sort of trade for, a $15 to $20 million player. Green makes $15 million. And then there's also, I know they want to keep Dante DiVincenzo, but if we're just talking about pathways to making another move here too, you could also trade DiVincenzo to another team, again, for a $15 to $20 million power forward type player. Also need to factor in like the luxury tax and where this team is going to spend. I mean, the word was very much get under the luxury tax yesterday, and I don't know how that changes now that you're like, we got LaMelo, like, are we going for it? Like, I think that's a pretty important variable in all of this. Like, what sense do you get on what the spending power they have is right now?
Yeah, so I think that's a major part of this whole transaction is I do believe, Dane, that LaMelo Ball's availability changed the course of where the Wolves were going to go from a financial aspect. Now, when they made the trade and salary dumped Julius Randle, they were under the tax entirely and out of the tax. And I do think that there were avenues that they were exploring to stay out of the tax. Even you could have even made a Jaylen Brown deal and stayed out of the tax but if you were willing to part with Rudy and Nas and a bunch of other things. But from what I'm told from high-level sources within the Wolves, it's that when LaMelo Ball became available, Mark Lore, Alex Rodriguez got fully behind this and said, that's fine. Yep, let's pay it. Let's go into the tax again. And they just really believe that Ball's efficiency, that his ability to make others better, that his fit with Anthony Edwards, that he can actually throw a lob pass to Rudy Gobert and Johan Berenger, like one of the only players, on this roster that can do that, that they just said, yes, let's do this now. We are in. So they are going to be a tax-paying team next season. That is the plan now with LaMelo Ball in. And so that's
important, John. Like that's
super important.
That's
super important.
Third year in a row. We do see teams around the league, not wanting to pay that tax. There's a repeater tax. Like paying the teams, if you're competitive, you should pay the luxury tax. Where it starts getting gray is when you've been in the luxury tax for multiple seasons in a row, as the Timberwolves have. I think they've paid like $110 million in luxury tax, right, over the last two seasons. Yes. And now, it kind of depends where the final spending ends up being, but I think you're talking about another sizable luxury tax bill that they'd be taking on here. And, it's a competitive advantage in the NBA to have ownership that is willing to pay the tax. I mean, I know just in the last 24 hours, I've been trying to build out different rosters while using, that luxury tax line as a hard line. And they're boring off seasons. There would have been boring off seasons to do that. And I think the only pathway to having, you could think what you think about this LaMelo trade, and I know some people are going to be on different sides of it, but it is fun. It is big. It is a significant move. And I just didn't know. I just didn't know where this group, this ownership group, was going to be from a spending standpoint. So it's good to hear that from you. And I think now that allows us to open up our minds a little bit to okay, maybe they are going to get another player, because I do think you need a 6th, 7th man here if you are really trying to go for it. I don't think they have enough just as currently constituted.
Yeah, and I think they'll look at two things. You will look at power forward. I also do think they're going to look to add more shooting. They got Isaiah Evans in the draft, but Dante DiVincenzo is going to be out for much of next season. I will say too, another little point. I was told that they do not want to trade Dante DiVincenzo still, so that the plan is to keep him, rehab him, and get him back on the floor sometime this season. Plans can change, but as of right now, they do not envision trading Dante DiVincenzo. So can you go out? Yeah, you go out and you can add maybe a shooter. Maybe you flip Josh Green for some kind of power forward type player and go that way. But
have you heard any shooter names? Do you have any names?
There's a couple out there. I think Quentin Grimes is out there. Tim Hardaway Jr. is out there. Several. There are several guys like that could come in, and the question will be what their their threshold for paying is and what they want to make. Because I do think now that you are in the tax, you are extra careful about every dollar that you spend. And so, but yeah, I think that they have a few options that they are looking at to add in that way. And if you get more floor spacing around him, around LaMelo Ball, around Anthony Edwards, I think that would be a big help to this roster, and just getting a little bit more depth. And like, then you are going to lean on Terrence Shannon Jr. more. You are going to lean on maybe, I would expect Jalen Clark to come back as a defensive minded player, to give them a little bit more on that end of the things. And so there's a lot more dominoes to fall, even if your core now is Ant, LaMelo, Jaden, and now Baron J, I think is going to be considered a core guy going forward.
I'm just trying to look at so I think as of right now, because they aggregated salaries, they are hard capped at the second apron, which is high. That's like the high.
I don't think they were ever going to go over the second apron.
Yeah.
So,
I'm just saying they're not capped at the first right now, which is $13 million lower than the second apron is. So I think there is some flexibility, again, dependent on how much luxury tax ownership is willing to pay. If they do a sign and trade, if they use the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, like the big one, the $15 million, then you're hard capped at the first apron right there. So there are some limitations, I guess, to the ways in which they're going to be able to add here. But I think it's big, especially to your point, if they want to keep Dante DiVincenzo, that they have Josh Green as a matching salary right now to be somebody that they could trade, or you could use this $15 million non-taxpayer mid-level exception to acquire a player. They don't have the Julius Randle trade exception anymore, but they got a $12 million one or $11 million one from the Mike Conley trade. Like, they still have some pathways, I guess, to be able to make moves here, and they need to make an additional move. Like, this roster, we said the roster is done of making big trades, but the roster is not done in terms of
there's always going to be tweaking and changing, of course. Like, that's going to be part of it. Let's grab our second break here, and we'll come back with some Naz Reid talk and some bigger picture stuff as well. The John Krasinski Show on Talk North is brought to you also by True Vision Institute and by Lamb Chops.
Let's thank TSR Injury Law, 612 TSR Time, 612 TSR Time. We got to get Steve Terry back on the show here soon. We haven't talked to him in a little while. What you need to know is if you're ever injured, you call 612 TSR Time. They're good people. They'll take good care of you. It's that simple. 612 TSR Time.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com to set up your free consultation. Get in there, go through all of the steps that they take you through. It's an exhaustive but a very, very intelligent and educating process about all of the vision correction options that are available to you. I had LASIK surgery with True Vision about 2 years ago now. And it's been just an incredible thing for my life. I don't have to deal with the hassles of glasses and contacts anymore. I see clearly, both up close and far away. And if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you can see that no glasses. And so I don't have to worry about constantly, are these glasses fashionable, or am I in the right style now? Is my prescription up to date? Do I have to go back and get another batch of daily contacts? Like, all of that hassle is gone, and my life is so much easier because I went to True Vision in Bloomington. So go to truevision.com, set up your consultation, tell them the John Krasinski Show sent you, and get on with living your best life after LASIK surgery at True Vision. That's right. If you go to sglambchops.com and use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything that you get at Lamb Chops, and you can get a lot at Lamb Chops. They have hoodies, they have hats, they have pants, they have shorts, t-shirts, they have sweaters. There are all sorts of different things for you. It's all incredibly comfortable. It's all stylish, and it's all super high quality. You know, if you buy something from Lamb Chops, it is going to last you a very long time, and you're going to look good in it the whole time. I always like to say, you can go to Lamb Chops, buy whatever you want. You can wear that out on a Friday night in the North Loop and feel like you fit right in. You can wear it at a Timberwolves or Lynx game and fit right in, or you can wear it just just lounging around the house watching, on TV and being incredibly comfortable. So go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. All right, back here now on the John Krasinski Show with Dane Moore from the Dane Moore NBA podcast, breaking down everything LaMelo Ball related. Let's just take a step back and say goodbye to Naz Reid. Like, I cannot, I've covered this team for 22 years. There has never been a better development story in this team's history, I don't think. I mean, he comes in as this pudgy, kind of injured guy from LSU that's undrafted. You don't know, is he a 5? Is he a 4? What can he do? And man, this guy just constantly, every single year, changed his body, added to his game, was completely selfless in being a sixth man behind Karl Anthony Towns, behind Julius Randle, and over and again delivered for these guys. And there's few players who I have more affection for over these 22 years than Naz. I will be very sorry to see him go. But what a run that he had here in Minnesota.
I think the development story thing is the thing to focus on, not just because he is the best development story in Timberwolves history. I think part of the reason why he became such a cult hero figure here is because he was a development story. And like you said, you covered this team for 22 years. I mean, how many like Mikhail Jelabales or Chris Johnsons or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's always part of what I think kept the Timberwolves fan base for that decade when they were a disaster, like intrigued over the course of time, was people telling themselves that a player like this was going to be Naz Reid, and it never happened. Nothing close to it ever happened. And then the Wolves still sucked when they got Naz Reid, in 2019. And he was one of those stories, and they didn't have Ant yet. And it was like, oh, okay, well, here's one of these guys who could be this development story that's going to be awesome. And it happened. It started happening. And then it happened in conjunction with the first time that the organization had gotten like lucky since the Kevin Garnett era, where you get Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. So I just feel like it all came together so well and in such like a Timberwolves way. And people ask me all the time, like especially from like other states, like what is up with these like Naz Reid tattoos and stuff? Like what is the obsession here? And I think it was that's what I've always said is just that he was like the prince who was promised, and it actually came together on top of having a really fun game. There's a really like stylistically fun basketball game to watch. And then, we've known him for 7 years. Like we've talked to Naz Reid a lot, like in interview settings, but also, he was one of the type of guys who was willing to, just talk to us in the hallway for a little bit or at an airport. And, I remember the first time he was a free agent. I was at the airport, and we were both going to be on the same flight, and he was kind of debating his future, and he said to me, he's like, what will the fan base think like if I leave, and I was like, man, I think they'd understand. Like he hadn't made any money or anything at that time, and he's like, okay, like there was clearly like a part of him who was like he'd received so much love that he didn't want to go, and I'm sure that's what he's feeling to some extent now. I remember we got onto the plane and he had his broken wrist at the time, and he's a couple rows, like I'm in like Comfort Plus and he's up in first class, and he has a broken wrist, so he can't get his bag up into the above compartment, and like 3 people are like there, like, oh, Naz, I got you, like put the suitcase up there, and he turned around and like smiled at me because we just had that conversation, 10 minutes before when we got on the plane. So I would say like the appreciation was mutual. I don't know if he's going to get Minnesota Timberwolves like tattooed across his chest, but he did love it here, and it's weird. It's weird to break up the Ant Jaden Naz thing, but That is the price of doing business.
It is, and I think like that the one thing, if I am looking at it and just saying, damn, it is that he was poised to take a starting role now. Like this was going to be his spot. He was going to be in the starting lineup every night. He was going to hear his name called, and he won't get that chance here. He's going to get in Charlotte. That's great, but you're in that building every night. The place crackled in a way when he got onto the court and he was out in the open floor and he's crossing someone over and going to the rim more so than anyone else. I mean, Ant gets his pop for his dunks and threes, but the Target Center exploded when Nas was doing his thing. And so I think it is unfortunate that we are not going to be able to see what Nas would have looked like as a 32-minute a night, ball in his hands, like starting player on this roster. And I know that he was looking forward to that. And that'll be tough because he worked his ass off for it. He deserved it. And now he doesn't get that chance. But, that's what this league is, he'll get it elsewhere. But I think going to Charlotte, no matter wherever he goes from here on out the rest of his career, that he is never going to be more beloved than he was here. And I can't wait for next season when they come back here, that his return is going to be absolutely electric.
You know how like the Kevin Love and Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns left the Timberwolves and then they went and won a championship. Mm-hmm. You know how that was getting a lot of play last month? I was kind of like rolled my eyes at that because it's like, man, I knew what Kevin Love was here. I knew what Andrew Wiggins was here. I knew what Karl Anthony Towns was here, right? Like they had been the prime versions of themselves in Minnesota. I think of Naz Reid leaving now and to do like the Minnesota doomerism thing, more of like the David Ortiz left, right? Like,
sure. Yeah,
he wasn't Big Papi, when he was on the Twins.
But he could become it. Yeah.
Right? Like I think that's what, because damn dude, if I haven't been wanting Naz Reid to start for like 4 years now and to see this 32-minute thing, and I just feel like, much like with David Ortiz, we never really got to see that, man. Nas was stonewalled as much as possible for like the entirety of his career. I mean, coming in as a center with Gorgie and Cat there, and then they get Rudy, and it's Rudy, Cat, and Nas is behind them, and Julius. Like he never got the opportunities he deserved here. Just like straight up, he didn't. He should have been a starter, and he should have at minimum gotten more opportunity to close games when he was hot here, and he never had like crossed that threshold, I guess, in Finch's eyes, because they always had, two former all-star bigs ahead of him. No all-star bigs over there in Charlotte. Like he's the dude there now, and I don't know. There's definitely a part of me that's gonna be like, man, I wish I would have got to see this in Minnesota, because he's not past his prime. He's in his prime.
Yeah, and I will say this, like, part of his legacy going forward now, let's say that the LaMelo thing really works out and everything goes well. Part of Nas's legacy is that, hey, he was the guy that got them LaMelo, and so that kind of goes into it as well. But I will think, we know there's literally, I bet you there are 2,000 people in this state at least with Naz Reid tattoos. Like, I think that it got to be that much. And the cool thing about it, as I think, you know me, Dana, like I'm a Hallmark card guy. Like I think that everyone is going to look at those tattoos and say, I'm not going to take this off. I'm not going to get this removed. Like, this is my guy. Like, and just because he's on another team now does not mean he's not your guy anymore. He will always be your guy. And I think that Nas will always feel like y'all were his people. So it's going to be emotional. It's going to be difficult in that way. And, if you think of what he went through last year, losing his sister and everything, like, he gave everything that he had to this place. And so he should be saluted going out. I understand why they did the deal. I think it makes sense, like, for what they needed and for, a shock to the system going forward, but it also stings to see the big guy headed out just when the opportunity was going to be greatest for him.
What do you think Ant and Jaden are thinking about that right now?
I've talked to a few people. Like, I can't speak for them, but like, they are certainly sorry to see Naz Reid go. I believe like he was their brother, especially Jaden. Like, Jaden and Naz were just airtight, and so I imagine there's disappointment. I do know that Ant has always liked LaMelo, always liked his game, and I think that even if there is whatever sort of feelings about losing Naz right away, there's also understanding and excitement for what LaMelo can bring to the table. And the first time that they're running the break and LaMelo throws a behind the back pass to Ant in the corner for a three, I think that's going to solve a lot of the whatever reservation that was. But again, like, I do believe that Ant in particular is understanding of this and will welcome LaMelo with open arms. And he will find all of the catch and shoot opportunities that he wants and more, courtesy of LaMelo. And so, I think that with Jaden, I'm not sure. Like, those two were tied at the hip, so that might be a little bit of a different thing. But for Ant, I think that Tim Connolly has had conversations with him about this and many other deals, and he wants to win. And I think that they all believe that LaMelo gives them a real chance to win.
Yeah, it would. To be upset about the trade, which I'm sure some people are, the way to be upset about it would be to be like, hey, there was this other path that I liked better. And, just like taking the temperature of the water here for the last 72 hours, like, people hadn't really liked the way that the off season was moving, right?
Yeah.
So right now, the alternative was like, yeah, Naz gets to start, but like, you probably weren't going to have a point guard and you weren't going to be able to re-inject talent into the team, which they needed after, getting off of Randall. So I don't know, like, what was the alternative path here. I just think any path to get a player at or around LaMelo's caliber was going to require a significant piece, Jaden, Naz, or Rudy, going out in a trade. And I think they just, ranked their favorite kids, and it was Naz was third, and that makes sense. I think a big part of this is that they were very scared of the idea of going into next season without Rudy Gobert. And
well, yeah. And one other thing, just to quick add to that, Dane, I think the conversations that the Wolves had with the Hornets, they preferred Naz over Rudy. Like, that was which the Hornets did, which surprised me.
Didn't know that.
Like, I was surprised to hear that, but that they wanted the younger piece. They wanted, everything Naz brings that way over Rudy, which I would have thought they would want a Rudy's defense on a very offensive minded team. But in their conversations, it was give us Naz over Rudy or you don't have a deal. And so the Wolves reluctantly said, okay, that's what we have to do.
That's probably the Hornets being like, Rudy's going to be 34.
Exactly.
We're not trying to contend next season. I mean, Rudy Gobert on the Hornets would make the Hornets better next season than Naz Reid on the Hornets is going to make the Hornets next season. I think that's fair to say. But you can look at Charlotte and you can be like, okay, they do have Diabate and Kalkbrenner. Like, they
have some bigs. Yeah,
they have some bigs. So that's interesting though. I personally think Rudy would have been great there, but yeah, Rudy is 34, and I will say, like, from a Wolves perspective, Rudy being able to maintain here and not fall off of some sort of age cliff, there's some risk associated there too. I mean, we know if there's a 7-footer there's no 7-footer who takes better care of their body and can play into their mid to late 30s than Rudy, I think. But yeah, they have Rudy and they don't have Naz, so he remains a foundation of this team and, still the third best player on your team. Like, they really, he's critical in this.
He is. And I just think, like, to wrap things up here, Dane, I think what I understood and maybe what you understood is after they lost to San Antonio, they needed some sort of significant vibe change going forward. And we'll see how this all shakes out, but this is a significant vibe change. Like there's going to be a whole different energy, a whole different juice. And so, they're very excited about it. And it's going to be it's just going to be an entirely different feel without Julius, without Nas, and with LaMelo Ball playing with his hair on fire. So buckle up, man.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. It's going to be, it's going to be interesting. We spent at least half the time, mourning the loss of Nas, but this is growth in the NBA, or this is the attempt at growth. Yeah. This is how it works, and it's just they're going to play basketball so differently, and that's a big Chris Finch thing here too. Of putting this all now they put a roster together for him, in the offseason. Finch needs to put an offense and a defense together here because I think LaMelo and Ant fit better than Julius and Ant. But LaMelo's got the ball in his hands a lot. LaMelo wants to shoot a lot. LaMelo is going to be aggressive a lot, and Anthony Edwards is all of those things too. So I do think Finch's free-flowing system though is more fitting of this type of roster where it's one big in Rudy and four sort of quicker decision makers, smaller players on the wing. I certainly think it's possible to put together, but a lot is falling on the back of Chris Finch right now to make this work and to make it work, right away.
Well, and then here's my final takeaway on it is this. Whatever is going to happen with it, what we know by making this trade is what we've known for the last 4 or 5 years, is that the Wolves are going for it. They are not sitting back. They are not wasting Ant's prime. They're not doing they're making major moves to try and win at a high level. And so that's, they're going into the luxury tax. The owners are investing. The executives are making major moves, and the coach clearly is going to be on board with this. And so, at the bottom line, we're covering a team that is not messing around in terms of trying to be as competitive as humanly possible. And I just have great admiration for teams that don't dip one toe in the water. They're diving all the way in. And
certainly
it could work or it could not, but it won't be for lack of ambition. And so that's what I respect about it.
Yeah, no, I do too. And it's a critical time in the arc of Anthony Edwards' career. As one, he's just going into his prime, and it's all right, Ant, it's time to unambiguously be a top 5 player in the league, They need that. But then also, John, that contract extension for Ant. That's that's coming up. And people can say all the noise about, Ant going somewhere else. I know you've written about that this week, and we talked to Conley about it, but 12 months.
You're always
right
on
now,
the clock. You are always on the clock.
And I'm saying the clock buzzes 12 months from today, where he has 2 years left on his contract. And if Ant makes all NBA this season, he will be Supermax eligible to sign that extension. So I think that has been a side plot of this whole offseason is
100%.
What are you doing this year? So 12 months from now, Ant is cool. I like this, more of this. Let's sign up for it now. And that's part of the risk here too. But I think there's certainly a world where the Wolves can be better than they were this past season, this year. And because of that, and because Ant's not going to be facing the double teams that he was, because there is some truth to that. He did not like that. You're not going to be able to do that with LaMelo Ball flanking him out there, certainly to the extent it was. So I think you're taking a step to create a winning environment around Anthony Edwards that he enjoys, that is enticing enough for him, that 12 months from today, he goes, yeah, let's get that Supermax extension on the books. And now he's locked up. Now he's locked up long-term again, and all that stuff shuts up, for a while. But I that was definitely a factor in all of this. You could not have a flat season here going into a pretty big decision window for Anthony Edwards.
And this team, Dane, that is going to be flying around the court, that is going to be who knows what you're going to get on a nightly basis, but they're going to score a ton of points. They couldn't wear those old uniforms, man. They're going to look good in those new unis going
A new
forward,
era,
so.
John. A new era.
Oh, man. Dane Moore, thanks so much for sticking with me here. Dane Moore, NBA Pod. You all know it. You all listen to it. I am John Krasinski from The Athletic. We are brought to you by Aquarius Home Services, Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood, Chew Vision Institute, and Lamb Chops. Thanks to Davide Rosso for producing on Talk North, and we will talk to you next week.